Now, breaking news, Judge McConnell, Chief Judge in Rhode Island, has gone even further than the Boston federal judge. He has issued a temporary restraining order. He didn't hold back against the Trump administration to force them to make sure that 44 million of the most underprivileged, disadvantaged Americans, babies, children, the poor, the elderly, the disabled, don't starve to death, aren't cut off from their food stamp and nutrition supplements and payments. $6 billion at risk in this program that Congress wanted it paid. One judge in Boston came up with a way to sort of encourage the Trump administration to make the payment on Monday. Forget that. Judge McConnell said, you're going to do the payments. And what happens when there's two different cases brought by two different sets of plaintiffs with two different orders? How does that all get reconciled? I'm going to do it for you here on Saturday on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button as we do a TED Talk meets a law school class. Just yesterday, I gave you a full report about the written order of Judge Talwani. Judge Talwani, an Obama appointee, who ruled after an evidentiary hearing as follows. She said, I'm going to force the Trump administration to reevaluate its position by Monday. I'm telling you that by having $6 billion in a rainy day contingency fund, that's enough to fund the program. You don't need the full $8 billion for November. So with the partial payment, and go search for other payments, like under Section 32, there's customs receipts that come in from the import-export of goods and different types of receipts. Go come up with the $8 billion. I'll give you until Monday. I'm going to hold the motion for temporary restraining order brought by the 23 Democratic states attorney general in abeyance. That was Judge Talwani. I think I know why she did it that way, because she's worried about falling into the mouth of the United States Supreme Court when it comes to funding orders. But Judge McConnell, and we've talked about Judge McConnell before. He was the judge that issued one of the first cases or orders about birthright citizenship, that Donald Trump could not remove birthright citizenship from the 14th Amendment by executive order. So, he's got some brass ones. He said, no, you have, in his hearing today, yesterday, he said, you, the government, the Department of Agriculture, you have used payments during shutdowns before from contingency funds to pay for the program. You have to do it again here. And I'm going to order you to do it. Now, there's a reason I think these two decisions came out that'll ultimately lead to the same conclusion and an appeal, but why they're different. Here's my theory about Judge Talwani. Judge Talwani is in Boston. One of her neighboring judges is Judge Young. Judge Young got blasted as a senior status judge by the United States Supreme Court, MAGA 6, because he issued an order to force funding that Donald Trump had cut. And that drove MAGA crazy on the Supreme Court. And they chastised him. And I think that rubbed off on Judge Talwani. So she found a way to kind of grant the temporary restraining order without granting it. She put it on ice. She put it on hold. But she said, on Monday, I want to see a plan, agency action plan. She's focused on compelling agency action. So it's not seen as an order about funding that could fall into the trap of the United States Supreme Court. And so she said, come back to me Monday with an agency plan. Now, look, the Secretary Rollins of the Agriculture Department, she already said, I don't know if I'm going to comply with any of these federal orders. We'll have to take a look at it. I think we have our answer before Monday. Judge McConnell held a hearing the following day on Friday. And he had in front of him not the 23 blue states. He had cities and public interest groups like Democracy Forward. Now, fortunately, we have people who were in the trenches from both of these organizations that are going to be able to brief us here. In that case, he went a different way because he's not bound by what Judge Talwani does. Nobody's bound by a fellow district judge, especially one from a different state. You're only bound by the highest court of your district, which in the Rhode Island, Massachusetts analysis would be the First Circuit or the United States Supreme Court. So he made his own ruling, and his ruling was, I'm blasting you with the injunction. I'll get my hands on the injunction. I'll update you during the course of the day about what it says. But we know what it says because he effectively ruled from the bench subject to his written order. Now, he doesn't seem to be so concerned about the Supreme Court and its funding precedent from over the spring and the summer. Now, let me show you, we had we had the pleasure of having an interview with Rob Bonta, who's one of the attorney generals and the one from California leading the charge, who helped obtain this win in the Talwani court. I want to show you his interview. And then later today, I'm going to have an interview that was done by my podcast partner, Ben Meisalis, of Skye Perryman. You know Skye Perryman. We have a regular playlist here for Democracy Forward. She was involved with the Rhode Island case, and I think you're going to find her interview fascinating as well. But for now, I want to give you in its entirety the interview that I did with Rob Bonta on the day the SNAP lawsuit was filed, which now we have the ruling. They filed this emergency complaint, temporary restraining order. We got the judge. We got the hearing this week. And for our audience, we've got Attorney General Rob Bonta of California to talk about the new filing. Welcome, Attorney General Bonta.
An honor to be with you once again, Michael. Thanks for having me.
As people may know, we were together and briefing the audience on No King's Day as Donald Trump threatened or did shoot live ordnance over the 5 when you and I were in San Diego, right near Camp Pendleton. And you talked then so eloquently about the 3 C's, and we've stolen it from you, and we've repeated it frequently on the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF of courts, crowds, and courage. And you've got it all here. Talk to our audience, brief them about what is the SNAP program, why did you spring into action? And then we'll talk about the logistics of the case that's been filed in Massachusetts with a hearing this coming Thursday.
Sounds great. The SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also commonly known to and referred to as food stamps, is our federal food assistance program for folks who are hungry, who are in need. Some of our most vulnerable community members, our children, our seniors, our disabled, who rely on it. And this is one of the great things that government does. It helps feed the hungry and provide a safety net of protection and health for those in need. And Trump unlawfully decided to withhold the SNAP funding during the government shutdown for the month of November. It's about $8 billion nationwide, $1.1 billion to California. It's about 41 million Americans who will be deprived of their food assistance programs funding, 1.1 that's about 1.1 billion in California, and these are the folks who really need it. And so I just want to say that I've always believed that societies should be judged on how they treat the most vulnerable. And on that score, Trump gets an F. He is going out of his way to hurt and harm the most vulnerable in our country for a political purpose, to use it as a political bludgeon, a cudgel, to blame the Democrats, to put up on the website that the Senate Democrats created this problem. He created this problem. The law requires him to pay the funding when there is a contingency fund in the SNAP program, as there is here. We think there's about $5 to $6 billion in it. The law, the SNAP Act, and the SNAP statutory framework says that money shall be used. And contingency funds, like reserve funds for any budget, are supposed to be for times just like this: emergencies, exigencies, times when you need the funding, and it's required to be spent. So instead of spending it, he's claiming that the quote well is dry, end quote, even though the money is there to be spent, $5 to $6 billion. And so we're demanding that money be spent on the people who need it. And so we filed in the District of Massachusetts today. We also, at the same time, simultaneously applied for a temporary restraining order. We have a hearing in 2 days. We hope to get an immediate ruling that will block the unlawful action and ensure that the SNAP funding flows. We have 2 claims based on the Administrative Procedures Act. One, that this action by the Trump administration withholding the funding in the contingency fund is contrary to law, and also that it's arbitrary and capricious. In prior government shutdowns, the contingency fund was drawn on and was used to pay SNAP benefits to Americans in need. So we believe we have a strong case.
Yeah, well, your case is very strong. Let's just talk from arbitrary and capricious. Let's just talk about the ever evolving, morphing position of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You've got a September 30th report, a lapse of funding plan, which is no longer up on the website for the USDA, been replaced with blame the Democrats for babies, children, and old people who will die effectively, but there was a lapse of funding plan that said out loud that there was an intent to continue the plan. There was $6 billion in funds. Don't worry, states, so you don't have to worry about planning around it. We will fund you. They said a similar thing on the 10th of October. And then all of a sudden, about 4 or 5 days ago, it became, no, there's no funding. There won't be any funding. Blame the Democrats. Is that part of your arbitrary and capricious attack?
Yes. They reaffirmed what the practice has always been and what the law requires, that the contingency fund should be used in times like this, like a government shutdown, as recently as September 30th and October 1st, and then twice in October, they stated that they reverse course, complete 180-degree turnabout without any explanation or reason, because there is no explanation or reason. It's just pure, staggering hypocrisy. And there's no explanation for it except for cruelty and very dangerous and disgusting political gamesmanship.
And look at and AG Bonta, look at the insult and injury to almost the same population. The Democrats are trying to have a commitment that 22 million Americans, many of the same type of Americans that are at or below the poverty line, are assured of getting health care through a tax deduction that would just need to be extended. We're not talking about illegal immigrants. We're not talking about Nicaragua. We're talking about Americans. Everything that you and I are going to talk about on this video is talking about Americans that Donald Trump is attacking and turning his back on. So that same group, now many of them, up to 40 million, also have food stamps, SNAP, other types of assistance that Donald Trump is denying them as well. While let's look what he's doing in the split screen. We have a split screen, but let's look at the split screen between what the Democratic attorneys general are doing and what the president of the United States is doing. Is he in the White House trying to solve this problem, working with Democrats to open the government? No, he's abroad again for the second time in about 2 weeks, going to Asia to try to fix all the problems that he created, a bull in a china shop, and wrecking our global economy and our relationships. So he's got to go over there for more pomp and circumstance, like Marie Antoinette, right? Literally, he is the modern incarnation of Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake while they starve and while I go dine with the new Japanese prime minister. And all that he seems to be concerned about is building his golden ballroom and tearing down a third of the White House and its history. So he's doing that during the shutdown. There seems to be enough money to fly Air Force One. There seems to be enough money to continue to demolish the People's House. What has he done to help the American people who are suffering and crushed under the weight of the Trump economy?
He's uninterested. He cares about himself.
Right.
He doesn't care about Americans. He doesn't care about the people that government is built to serve, the ones who are struggling the most, who are the most vulnerable. That's why government exists, to provide that social safety net, to provide health care, because everyone should have high quality, affordable health care, to provide food, because no one in the richest country in the history of the world should go hungry or die of starvation. And that's what these programs do. So instead of working to end the government shutdown, working to get Americans just continue the healthcare that they've already had without massive spikes in their premiums, or working to make sure that folks have food on their table, especially in November, as people are going to sit down for Thanksgiving meals. The poor folks who rely on food stamps, on SNAP to have food, will not have it. And meanwhile, he's working on his ballroom.
And he's cut out all the other social safety nets. Food banks don't have money. He's cut other state funding, continuing to destroy the relationship between the federal government and the states and the people, by extension, with federal funding. So you guys are scrambling with limited money. You're like the boy at the dike trying to plug holes that he's created.
Yeah, he's created. And meanwhile, prices spiking. He said he was going to lower costs on day one. He imposed tariffs against all of our over 200 plus trading partners. We're in Washington, D.C. before the United States Supreme Court next week to argue that his tariffs are what they are, unlawful, and he had no authority to issue them. So he's raising prices. He's pulling away the social service safety net. He's making sure, ensuring that our most vulnerable go hungry or that they don't have health care as he builds his ballroom and jets around overseas.
should be a recipe for disaster at the midterms. And I know your state is working very, very hard. I did a video. I've never in my life, and I've been around almost as long as your governor, I've never seen a political figure tell his constituency, don't send any more money. We have enough about Prop 50 and to get it passed, where you guys have just wiped the floor with the opposition group, the no vote, to try to get 5 new seats approved with a new map in California. It's just a testament to what the Democrats stand for, what leaders like your boss and you stand for, in trying to protect America. You want to talk for a minute about? I learned on the way into the interview that you've been assigned to Judge Talwani. She's no stranger to the Trump administration. She's made a number of rulings about funding, about immigration policy. She's not afraid to oppose the Trump administration. She's now dealing with some recent Supreme Court decisions that she and you are going to have to navigate through. But just to give our audience a little bit of taste of this, she was appointed by Obama. She was confirmed, A.G. Bonta, 94-0 by the Senate. Remember those days when federal judges were not attacked as being partisan hacks by the occupant of the White House?
Amazing. Bring those days back. We need those. The young voters and Americans will be shocked to hear that those days ever existed, Michael.
And are you going to be flying into Massachusetts for the hearing on Thursday?
I won't be there on Thursday. I'll leave it to my crack team to handle it. I'll be heading to D.C. for the U.S. Supreme Court argument on tariffs, though.
Oh, you're going to be there for that. Great. That's great. Well, we're actually, as long as we're here, we'll plug that. We're going to be covering that with a live feed on Legal AF. We've been doing all the live feeds of the oral arguments of the United States Supreme Court with commentary there. I feel better knowing that you're going to be in that room. Mm-hmm. Talk to our audience, though, at the end here about what is at stake. What are the states asking for at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday in front of Judge Talwani, live and in person? What do you hope to walk away with?
We hope to walk away with a temporary restraining order that blocks the Trump administration from unlawfully refusing to spend the $5 to $6 billion in that SNAP contingency fund and make the payments that are due for November, so that kids and the poor and our seniors and the disabled can eat in America in November. 41 million people. So that's what we're asking for. We are very hopeful. We feel we made a strong case, and we await the judge's ruling, but it will be an outstanding outcome if the funding that's supposed to be allocated to Americans so they can eat would actually be spent by this administration. And
you've done it before. I mean, the track record of the Democratic attorneys general is fantastic. I mean, you're batting over. If you were the Dodgers, you guys would be thrilled.
We'd be Ohtani.
Seriously, I mean, you're batting over 900. I mean, it's just these are Hall of Fame numbers right there. But I like to talk about that because it gives our audience some hope that the public interest groups like the ACLU and the Democracy Forwards, Democracy Now, and the attorneys general are helping average Americans who are being crushed and ignored by this and this air of indifference by the Trump administration, which, just in my view, is finally seeping into the water supply, because you're seeing it show up in crowds, as you like to talk about, courts, crowds, and courage. It's seeping into the crowds. Look at the numbers from hands off to No King's Day 1 to No King's Day 2. It's almost doubled from the original one, the hands off one, with almost 10 million people in the streets. And then look at the polling. I mean, 63% of America has rejected Donald Trump, and that's very hard to turn around. And he's not, because he'll still be in charge, so he's still doing the same things. So we're hopeful that despite his efforts to try to change maps and get an advantage before he even starts at the midterms, that people are going to come out in large numbers and give you the crowd support that you're looking for, right?
Absolutely. And I'll just end with this: that the American people deserve better from their president. They deserve a president that cares about them, that will follow the law, that will help make sure that when they're down on their luck, they're fed, that they have affordable health care, and he's not doing any of that. So they're being disrespected, demeaned, and improperly treated by this president. But they do have folks, like you mentioned, who are going to court, including my fellow Democratic AGs, who care about them, who see those Americans, who value those Americans, who want better for them, who know they deserve better, and are fighting for them, for their rights, for their funding that they deserve, for the services that they deserve, that they rely on to survive and to be healthy. And so I'm glad that there's so many people are tuning into what's happening. They're seeing what this president is doing to them, turning his back on them, and visiting pain on them. And so that's what crowds are about. People power is the most potent power that there is. Show up, show out, speak up, speak out, exercise your right to vote, exercise your right to peacefully protest in exercise of your First Amendment. That's what makes our democracy strong. So keep fighting and keep showing up.
I think if our audience was in the room, they'd be on their feet now. And just lastly, you definitely, your group definitely sued the right person. It's Russ Vogt. It's the Office of Management and Budget. He's the architect of Project 2025. It's not the U.S. DA, the Agricultural Department. It's Russ Vogt, and you've properly sued him. And I think that's going to be a big part of your hearing what he's doing to destroy America as the head of the Office of Management and Budget. So until my next report, thanks for being a big supporter. Cross our 900,000 barrier. We're making a march towards 1 million subscribers, because that subscriber base is really important in YouTube world. It keeps us on the air. It gives us street credibility. It lets us get interviews with attorneys general and with people like Sky Perryman. It just makes this whole ecosystem work. And then the way we pay for all the things that we do here, all the commentary, all the contributors, all the videos, is really Legal AF Substack. Become a member and a paid member for $7 a month, I think a little bit less, and we'll overwhelm you with fascinating content at the intersection of law and politics. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touches Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.